Welcome Algebra 1A to Lesson 2.4, Multiplying Real Numbers. Today, we're going to be dealing with multiplying some numbers and some negatives, and also talking about our first term here, the multiplicative identity. Basically, the multiplicative identity, it is the number 1. Well, what does that mean? Well, it's a multiplicative identity because anything times 1 is itself. So anything times 1 or multiplied to 1 is itself. Interesting, huh? So we just call 1 the multiplicative identity. For example, 5 times 1 equals 5. Negative 4 times 1 equals negative 4. 0 times 1, all of that. 1 is the multiplicative identity. When it comes to multiplying the product of two real numbers with the same sign, same sign is positive. So it's always going to be positive. It's interesting. Positive. For example, 5 times 2 is positive 10. Negative 4 times negative 5 is also going to be 20. The big thing, negative times a negative is positive. Negative times negative is positive. If you didn't know that already, there it is. So negative times a negative is a positive. Key thing to pick up. Product of two real numbers with different signs, is negative, and it doesn't matter what order. So you can have 5 times negative 3 is going to be negative 15, and a negative 8 times 4 is going to be negative 32. So opposite signs, negative, same signs, positive. For example, and really, guys, use your calculator. It's no big deal if you don't know all of your times tables. You should, but just use your calculator. Negative 7 times negative 3, again, if you put in the calculator, positive 21. I'd recommend using those parentheses in the calculator. We have a few things going on in this one. 3, 4, negative 2. Well, 3 times 4, if you think about it, that's 12 times negative 2 is going to be negative 24. Okay? Doesn't quite matter what order we do that in. Fractions, same idea. Let's think of 1/4 times negative 16. 1/4 negative 16 is going to be negative 4. Negative 4 times negative 3 is positive 12. Negative times negative is positive. Other than that, calculator. Checkpoint should be very quick. Negative times negative, positive 24. 2. If you want to break it up, we could do negative 3 times negative 2, which is positive 6. And then times negative 7 is going to be negative 42. So just be aware of those things. Some of the properties of multiplication. So multiplication, if you remember when we did addition, it is commutative. So what we mean by that is you could do A times B, and that's going to be the same thing as B times A. You can switch them around. For example, we have 3 times 4. Well, 3 times 4 is the same thing as 4 times 3. It's also associative. It doesn't matter what grouping they're in. So we could do A times B times C, or we could do A and B and C first. So 2 times 3 times 4 is the same thing as 2 and 3 and 4. Notice the order does not change for associative. Identity property, this is what we were talking about before. Anything times 1 is that number. So A times 1 is essentially equal to A. It's also the same thing as 1 times A. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. So identity from there. We have two other properties. Property is 0. Anything times 0 is 0. So A times 0 is the same thing as 0 times A. It is 0. So that is the property of 0. It's a unique one when we multiply. So anything times 0. Could be a variable, could be a number, could be a negative. 4 times 0 is 0. And the property of negative 1, product of a number and negative 1, is the opposite of the number. So it's pretty simple. If you ever want to change a negative to a positive, it just flips. So negative 5 times negative 1 is positive 5. Flips. Let's see some other examples of those. So how these properties are illustrated. Basically, I'll give you an expression, and you just need to tell me what property is being utilized. 3 times 0 is 0, so anything times 0 is 0. That is our 0 property. You could just write that. Anything times 1 is itself. When you think of that, itself makes sense to be the identity property. For C, what's happening? The order is switching. If the order is switching, that's commutative. And for letter D, the arrangement is switching. The numbers are in the same spot. And that's what's often confused. So it is the associative property. And negative 7 times negative 1 is 7. We again call that the property of negative 1. Okay, so check out these examples here. If you want to pause and think about it and go through and then check, that's fine. I'll put the answers up here and then show you guys the homework. Negative 4 times 0, 0 property. So those are the properties. The next page, don't actually worry about it. Freebie. So you can actually jump to the homework, and I will modify it in the assignment, but it's going to be the odds on 2.4. I'll share with you which ones to skip on Schoology. Great stuff, guys.